Imagine finding out that the most terrifying monster in wrestling history is actually the sweetest guy backstage. We are talking about a legend who stayed in character for 30 years and endured 17 surgeries just to ensure that every single performance was flawless. So, how did a guy with a disastrous start transform into the most respected icon in WWE history? Hang on a sec. To really understand the Deadman, we have to rewind to March 24th, 1965. That is when Mark William Calaway was born in the sprawling city of Houston, Texas, the baby of 5 brothers. By high school, he was already massive, standing 6'10". Mark dominated both football and basketball at Waltrip High. His size and talent snagged him basketball scholarships, first at Angelina College and then Texas Wesleyan University, where he shined for the Rams during the 1985-86 season. Everyone expected him to go pro in hoops, but destiny had other plans. Wrestling was his true passion since childhood. So, in late 1986, he started training under veteran Buzz Sawyer. His first big break came with world-class championship wrestling, wearing a mask and adopting the name Texas Red. His debut was a brutal loss against the legendary Bruiser Brody, with Percy Pringle, who would later play a huge role, watching. Mark eventually moved to the Continental Wrestling Association, where Dutch Mantell took him under his wing. He experimented with various gimmicks there, like the Master of Pain and the Punisher. Success came fast. As the Master of Pain, he snatched the USWA World title from Jerry Lawler. And as the Punisher, he took the WCWA Texas title from Eric Embry. Though a rookie, Mark carried himself like a seasoned pro, earning major respect in the locker room as a reliable guy you could count on inside the ring. That reputation opened doors at World Championship Wrestling in 1990, where he emerged as Mean Mark Callous. He embraced a darker vibe. Announcers described him as a mysterious figure who loved heavy metal and pet snakes. This fresh direction led to a partnership with Dan Spivey, forming the imposing tag team known as the Skyscrapers. The duo made waves instantly, especially during their memorable rivalry with the legendary Road Warriors. However, his WCW journey hit a wall when Ole Anderson, the head booker, told him he would never make a dime in this industry. Anderson said he had no future. Boy, was he wrong. Please smash that like button if you love seeing people prove their haters wrong. Instead of giving up, Mark kept grinding while quietly plotting his exit. During this time, he landed a small role in Hulk Hogan's movie Suburban Commando. That gig turned out to be a total game changer. Hogan saw his potential immediately and pushed for the WWF to sign the big man. Once his contract ended, he met with Vince McMahon. Surprisingly, the chairman was not exactly thrilled about the future superstar at first. But that skepticism, one of the most iconic characters ever, The Undertaker, was born, a mysterious mortician from Death Valley who felt no pain and stuffed his victims into body bags. It might seem obvious now that this would work, but back then, most weird gimmicks failed miserably. The difference was how completely Mark committed to the role. He tested it at house shows as Kane the Undertaker before his grand debut at Survivor Series on November 22nd. Walking out with Brother Love to that haunting music, he made an instant impact, destroying Coco Beware with his tombstone piledriver and then taking out Dusty Rhodes. He dominated everyone in his path, scaring the life out of fans every time he appeared. Brother Love did not last long as his manager, so he reunited with Percy Pringle, now playing the creepy Paul Bearer. Bearer carried a mysterious urn that seemed to give The Undertaker his supernatural powers. The following spring brought WrestleMania on March 24th, 1991, where he kicked off a legendary streak by defeating Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Next came a massive feud with the Ultimate Warrior, which ended early when Warrior left the company. But nothing could slow the Deadman down. Even though he was a villain, Fans were starting to cheer for him because he was just too impressive. The momentum peaked at the 1991 Survivor Series when he shocked everyone by beating Hulk Hogan for the championship. Although he lost the title days later due to Ric Flair's interference, beating Hogan showed just how much the company believed in their new star. The next year got even better. At WrestleMania 8, he kept his perfect record alive by beating Jake the Snake Roberts so badly that Jake left the promotion for 4 years. This feud turned the Deadman into a hero for the first time, and the fans loved it. But things were not perfect. For a while, management kept putting him against massive guys who could barely wrestle, forcing him to act robot-like, which made for some tough matches to watch. It was a rocky start, scrapping with giants like Kamala and struggling against Giant Gonzalez, barely scraping by with a disqualification win at WrestleMania 9 in 1993. It wasn't exactly a highlight reel moment, but he kept stacking up W's regardless. The tide finally turned when he locked horns with Yokozuna, culminating in that legendary Casket match at the 1994 Royal Rumble. Even though he took the loss, the segment ended with his spirit eerily levitating into the rafters, a brilliant creative pivot to give him time off to rehab a severe back injury. That meant sitting out WrestleMania for the first time ever, staying off the grid until SummerSlam. But his return wasn't simple. Walked straight into a bizarre plot where Ted DiBiase introduced a counterfeit Undertaker, played by Mark's real-life buddy, Brian Lee. Behind the curtain, the politics were just as intense. While the Clique, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Triple H, and Sean Waltman held massive sway, the Phenom established his own brotherhood known as the Bone Street Crew. This faction rolled deep with heavy hitters like Yokozuna, Savio Vega, Charles Wright, the Godwins, and Rikishi. By this era, Calaway commanded so much reverence that even the Clique knew better than to cross him. He effectively became the presiding judge of Wrestler's Court, an underground tribunal where the boys settled beefs whenever someone violated the locker room's unwritten code. Please smash that like button so this legend can get the tribute he deserves. Outside the ring, Mark was building a life, tying the knot with his first wife, Jody Lynn, and celebrating the birth of their son, Gunnar. Meanwhile, his on-screen persona was shifting gears from a zombie-like mortician to a darker, gothic force who could summon lightning and kill the arena lights with a mere flick of his wrist. This evolution kept him at the top of the food chain, and at WrestleMania 11 in April 1995, he dismantled King Kong Bundy, securing another notch on his undefeated streak. Soon after, a crushed eye socket forced him to don a phantom-like mask. Yet, he never slowed down, battling through the pain against DiBiase's million-dollar corporation. By late '95, he was back in the main event spotlight, squaring off against Diesel at WrestleMania 12. He climbed to 5-0 on the grandest stage, but the landscape shifted violently the very next night with the arrival of Mankind. This deranged newcomer was different. He actually dominated the Deadman. Their clashes were intense, leading to the vicious Boiler Room Brawl at SummerSlam 1996. Mankind didn't just win the fight. He orchestrated the ultimate betrayal, convincing Paul Bearer to turn his back on The Undertaker. For the first time, the impervious giant looked genuinely vulnerable. The animosity exploded at In Your House Buried Alive in October 1996. They went to war in the inaugural match of its kind. Although Taker ended up 6 feet under that night, you can't keep a supernatural force down. He resurrected at Survivor Series weeks later, descending from the rafters in leather as the Lord of Darkness. After finally conquering Mankind, he aimed for the gold in early 1997. Following a controversial finish, year's Royal Rumble, he punched his ticket to the championship match against Psycho Sid at WrestleMania 13. That night, he captured his second WWE title and pushed the streak to 6-0. But the drama was just beginning with what would become his most iconic saga yet. Paul Bearer returned, desperate to manage the champ again. When the Phenom refused, Bearer played his trump card, threatening to expose a horrific skeleton from Mark's past if he didn't comply. This blackmail kicked off one of the greatest storylines in wrestling history. At first, the champion submitted to the manipulation, but eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and told his former manager to shove it. That's when Bearer dropped the nuclear option. The Undertaker had a brother named Kane who survived the flames and was out for blood. It was soap opera storytelling at its fun. Absolute peak. For months, Bearer hyped Kane's arrival, claiming Taker had set a fire years ago that killed their parents and left Kane scarred for life. While this psychological warfare brewed, the Deadman held onto the belt through the spring and summer. However, the pressure mounted, and he dropped the title to Bret Hart at SummerSlam 1997. Things spiraled further as he entered a blood feud with Shawn Michaels, setting the stage for the first ever Hell in a Cell match at In Your House Bad Blood that October. That cage match cemented itself as a masterpiece, proving once and for all that Calaway was an elite worker between the ropes. But just as victory seemed certain, the lights went red. Kane finally appeared, ripping the door off its hinges and costing his brother the match. The Big Red Machine's debut was a nightmare for Taker. Paul Bearer and Kane demanded a fight, but the Undertaker vowed never to strike his own flesh and blood. So, Kane went on a rampage, obliterating icons like Mankind and Vader to provoke a reaction. For a fleeting moment, a reunion seemed possible when DX was targeting The Undertaker. Kane arrived to save his brother, fooling the world into thinking the family feud was buried. But it was a setup. At the Royal Rumble, during the Undertaker's casket match against Shawn Michaels, Kane slammed the lid on his brother's hopes. He didn't just cost him the win, he trapped him inside and set it on fire, stuffed him inside the casket, and lit the whole thing up. But, being the Phenom, he didn't just survive, he regrouped. After vanishing for a few weeks, he stormed back right before WrestleMania 14 with a clear mission. He was finally going to destroy his own brother on WWE's biggest stage. At Mania, Taker faced his scariest threat yet in Kane, but still came out on top after delivering 3 tombstone piledrivers, pushing his streak to 7-0. The bad blood wasn't finished, though. Next month, they squared off in the first ever Inferno match, surrounded by literal flames, which Taker also won. While Kane went on to hunt down Steve Austin for the title, Taker reignited his war with Mankind. This setup led to one of the most legendary moments in the business at King of the Ring. During their Hell in a Cell fight, they started brawling on the roof, and Taker tossed Mankind off the edge, sending him crashing 16 feet down through the announcer's table. The violence didn't stop there. He later chokeslammed Mankind straight through the cage ceiling. After dispatching him, he locked eyes on champion Steve Austin. It got complicated when they were forced to team up, actually winning the tag belts together while hyping their big showdown. By SummerSlam on August 30th, any teamwork was out the window as they battled for the gold. Leading up to the fight, it looked like Taker and Kane had patched things up, but the Big Red Machine didn't interfere. Austin won the bout, and afterward, it seemed like the Brothers of Destruction had officially reunited. By October, the script flipped again. Taker turned on Kane, aligned with Paul Bearer, and finally confessed to burning down their family home. His persona morphed into a dark priest sitting on a throne, commanding a cult known as the Ministry of Darkness. This sinister squad included the Acolytes, the Brood, Midian, Viscera, and The Big Show. The Ministry angle really caught fire in 1999 when Taker targeted Vince McMahon himself. It was a storyline blurring reality and fiction, where he tried to take over the company while Vince claimed he was losing his mind. The feud got intense, with the Deadman terrorizing the whole McMahon family. Hit the like button if you think this was Taker's best era. It got even darker when he hanged the Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 15 inside Hell in a Cell, moving his streak to 8-0. though most fans try to block that memory out. Then he tried to force Stephanie McMahon into a dark wedding on Raw that April. He claimed a mysterious higher power was pulling the strings. From the shadows, Stone Cold crashed the ceremony, leading to another title match at Over the Edge. Taker snagged his third WWE Championship that night. 2 weeks later came the big reveal. Vince McMahon was the higher power all along. Even today, fans rank that as one of the worst swerves in history. His title run was short. On the June 28th Raw, in the highest-rated segment in cable history at the time, Stone Cold won the belt back. The Ministry crumbled, and Taker started tagging with Big Show, taking the Giant under his wing. They even grabbed the tag titles twice. During this run, Taker started looking less like a zombie priest and more like his real self. Kevin Nash started rumors that this shift was because Taker was planning to jump ship to WCW, though that seems laughable considering. WCW was a sinking ship, and Taker was loyal to the bone. Whatever the reason, he took some time off in September 1999 to fix a groin injury and marry his wife, Sarah. When he returned at Judgment Day in May 2000, the Deadman was history. Enter the American Badass. He was a trash-talking biker riding a Harley-Davidson to the ring, rocking denim and sunglasses. Kid Rock's American Badass. And later, Limp Bizkit's Rollin' became his anthems. Even though it was a jarring shift, fans immediately loved this new version, breathing new life into a gimmick that was dangerously close to expiring. This new style made him a powerhouse. After a quick dust-up with Kane, they linked up again as the Brothers of Destruction. On his own, freed from the zombie act, he was finally having banger matches with stars like Kurt Angle, The Rock, and Triple H. His war with Triple H led to what many call his best WrestleMania performance, pushing the streak to 9-0 at WrestleMania 17. Surprisingly, this is when people backstage first realized he had never lost at the Big Show. While the streak looks planned now, those first 9 wins were mostly luck. Before his next Mania moment, he stayed busy. He and Kane won the tag belts on the April 19th. SmackDown, feuding with the two-man power trip. Then came the WCW Invasion, a storyline that somehow disappointed everyone. During the invasion, he had a forgettable program with Diamond Dallas Page, who they totally buried, and Chronic, leading to one of the worst matches ever. The only bright spot was winning the WCW Tag Team titles. Alongside snagging Tag Team Gold with Kane at Survivor Series that November, his life outside the ring was blooming as he and his wife Sarah welcomed their little girls Chasey and Gracie. Once the invasion drama settled, he threw everyone a curveball by breaking bad again, fully embracing a darker, more aggressive persona. Rebranding himself as Big Evil, he strutted around claiming to be the absolute toughest dog in the yard, daring anybody in the locker room to prove him wrong. Then came the 2002 Royal Rumble, where a rookie named Maven did the unthinkable and actually eliminated the legend. But instead of burying the new kid, The Undertaker used that moment to elevate Maven's career. Smash that like button if you respect how Taker always looked out for the next generation of talent. That backstage leadership paid dividends, leading to a dream showdown with Ric Flair at WrestleMania 18, where he pushed his undefeated streak to a perfect 10-0. The very first draft lottery shipped him over to Raw, where he wasted no time snatching the undisputed championship right out of Hulk Hogan's hands. He was a fighting champion, defending the strap on both shows and putting over rising stars like Jeff Hardy until his reign hit a wall at Vengeance. That July, he dropped the title in a chaotic triple threat match against Kurt Angle and The Rock, with the Great One walking away with the gold. Shifting gears to SmackDown, he played a massive role in building Brock Lesnar into a beast, culminating in a brutal Hell in a Cell clash at No Mercy that October. Despite the carnage, he barely took a breather before resurfacing in early 2003 to mentor a giant newcomer named Nathan Jones. They were slated to team up at WrestleMania 19 against Big Show and A-Train, but it became painfully obvious that Jones wasn't ready for prime time. So, the Deadman flew solo, dismantling both opponents in a handicap match to extend his legendary record to 11-0. However, the crowd was starting to get antsy. They were tired of the biker gimmick and desperate to see the return of the supernatural Deadman. He spent the rest of 2003 grinding out solid bouts with John Cena, Kurt Angle, and Lesnar. But the year ended on a grim note. At Survivor Series that November, he lost a buried alive match to none other than Vince McMahon, screaming for a character reset. That defeat gave him time to grieve his father's real-life passing and rethink his persona. When March 2004 arrived, he was ready. Fans at WrestleMania 20 got exactly what they craved. The Deadman was back, but with a gritty, hybrid edge that kept some of his biker toughness. With the eerie pallbearer back in his corner, he conquered Kane for the second time on the grandest stage, marking the streak at 12-0. Post-Mania, he kept Bearer by his side while waging war against the Dudley Boys, JBL, and eventually a young Randy Orton. That rivalry with Orton turned WrestleMania 21 into a defining moment where the streak truly became the main attraction of the show. It was the legend killer versus the legend, and for the first time, a huge chunk of the audience genuinely believed the streak might end. That match established the heart-stopping formula for all his future Mania bouts, filled with intense near falls that kept everyone on the edge of their seats. The Undertaker survived again, hitting 13-0 while continuing to evolve his in-ring game with more realistic combat techniques. Deeply influenced by mixed martial arts, he started utilizing submissions like the Go-Go Plata to add a terrifying layer of realism to his fights. 2005 brought a messy feud with Muhammad Hassan that was abruptly scrapped due to tragic real-world events in London. He pivoted back to battling Orton, actually dropping matches to him at both SummerSlam and No Mercy later that autumn. After vanishing for a month, he stormed back at Survivor Series, demanding one final showdown with Orton inside the Devil's Playground. Leading up to their he was doing creepy stuff like possessing backstage interviewers to deliver chilling warnings directly to Orton. The psychological warfare worked perfectly, and he finally buried the rivalry by defeating Orton inside the cell that December. Seeking fresh challenges in early 2006, he locked horns with Kurt Angle, shockingly tapping out in a rare display of respect. WrestleMania 22 was supposed to feature a rematch with Angle, who was originally booked to end the undefeated streak. But plans changed, and while Angle chased the world title, Taker found himself staring down the massive Mark Henry. He stuffed Henry into a casket in a quick match, pushing the record to 14-0, but then hit a bit of a rough patch. He tried to drag a decent match out of the Great Khali, but even the Deadman couldn't work miracles with the Giant's limited mobility. Despite proving his legacy, he had to power through some lackluster segments at Judgment Day and on SmackDown that August. Things finally picked up when he ignited a feud with Mr. Kennedy, battling through blood-soaked gimmick matches for the rest of the year. He even reunited with Kane, bringing the Brothers of Destruction back together to decimate Kennedy and MVP. By 2007, he was hungry for his first Royal Rumble victory, entering at number 30 for a showdown with history. It came down to him and Shawn Michaels, their first major face-off since the 90s, and after a nail-biting sequence, he tossed HBK out. That win earned him a shot at Batista's World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 23. The match was an instant classic, lasting 16 grueling minutes before he secured the title and kept the streak alive at 15-0. This victory kicked off a golden era where, for the next 6 years, his WrestleMania performance would consistently steal the show. His title reign lasted until May 11th, when Edge cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase to steal the belt. Recovery from a torn bicep kept him on the shelf until September, but he came back swinging against Mark Henry before jumping right back into the main event scene. He went to war with Edge and Batista inside Hell in a Cell at Survivor Series, and then a triple threat at Armageddon. But the gold kept slipping through his fingers. Hungry for another shot, he entered the 2008 Royal Rumble at the #1 spot with Shawn Michaels waiting at #2. This time, HBK got his payback and tossed him out. But the Deadman didn't stay down. The next month, he survived the brutal Elimination Chamber, outlasting heavy hitters like Batista, Finlay, MVP, and Big Daddy V to punch his ticket to WrestleMania 24. Facing Edge on the grandest stage, he delivered another instant classic. After 24 minutes of action, he forced the Rated R superstar to tap out, capturing the world title and extending the streak to 16-0. He successfully defended at Backlash, but Vicky Guerrero pulled some strings to strip him of the belt. The bad blood boiled over all summer, climaxing at SummerSlam inside Hell in a Cell, where he chokeslammed Edge off a ladder straight through the canvas to hell. He kept busy with Big Show and Jeff Hardy until a massive challenge arose. Shawn Michaels believed he was the one to finally end the undefeated run. Their WrestleMania 25 showdown was billed as Heaven versus Hell, Michaels descending in, white, while the demonic phenom rose from the shadows. What followed is widely considered the greatest match in wrestling history. After 30 intense minutes, the Deadman secured the win, making the record 17-0. He took 4 months off after that, career-defining performance, returning to snatch the World Heavyweight title from CM Punk inside the Cell that October. He held on to the gold until the Elimination Chamber the following February. That night was a disaster. A pyrotechnic malfunction literally set him on fire, burning his chest and face. It ended even worse when Shawn Michaels interfered, handing the title to Chris Jericho. Shawn was consumed by obsession, desperate for a rematch. After failing to win the Rumble, he cost Taker the title just to force his hand. The Undertaker finally agreed, but with one high-stakes condition. If Michaels lost at WrestleMania 26, his career was over. Their streak versus career match was the main event, with some fans arguing it topped their first encounter. If you're enjoying this look back at a legend, smash that like button so we can keep the nostalgia coming. After 24 grueling minutes, HBK's legendary career came to a close as the streak hit 18-0. The Undertaker took a hiatus to let his battered body recover, returning to feud with his brother Kane over the big gold belt. Knowing the clock was ticking on his own career, he did the job for Kane, losing 3 straight pay-per-views to make the monster look strong before vanishing again for shoulder surgery. He made it back just in time for WrestleMania 27, where Triple H stepped up to avenge Shawn Michaels. Taker won to reach 19-0, but the post-match scene told a different story. The Deadman physically couldn't stand and had to be carted out, while Triple H walked away on his own 2 feet. That set the stage for the WrestleMania 28 rematch, dubbed the End of an Era. After a full year on the sidelines, Undertaker faced Triple H inside Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels as the special referee. The narrative was clear. Keeping the streak alive was becoming impossible with age. For over 30 minutes, they tore the house down. The world gasped when the Deadman barely kicked out of a sweet chin music into a pedigree combo, but he survived to make it 20-0. The ending was so picture-perfect that Mick Foley begged him to retire right then and there, insisting he could never top that moment. But he didn't listen. He had another solid outing against CM Punk at WrestleMania 29. 2 reached 21-0. But Father Time was knocking on the door. After disappearing for a year, he returned at WrestleMania 30 to face Brock Lesnar. No one gave Brock a chance. The script was supposed to flip for a younger star eventually. That's why 70,000 people went dead silent when Brock hit the third F5 and got the 3 count. After 24 years, the streak was dead. It was the red wedding of wrestling, proving the Phenom was mortal after all. Brock used that victory to become the final boss of WWE, a title he still holds. But The Undertaker wasn't ready to fade away. He beat Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 31 and had a surprisingly gritty cell match with Lesnar that summer. However, by the time he fought Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 32, the magic was fading. It was obvious his prime was long gone. Everyone knew it was time to walk away, but out of pure respect, no one wanted to tell him. By then, Mark Calaway knew he had missed his cinematic exit and became obsessed with chasing one last classic. His body just wouldn't allow it. The WrestleMania 33 match with Roman Reigns was heartbreaking to watch. His bad hips made it clear he had no business being in the ring. The following year, his match with John Cena was cut to 3 minutes because of his physical limitations. He tried to get in shape for the big paydays in Saudi Arabia, but those were disasters, especially the train wreck with Goldberg. He had a decent tag match with Roman Reigns against Shane and Drew McIntyre at Extreme Rules 2019, but it still wasn't the goodbye he deserved. Finally, at WrestleMania 36, he found his closure against AJ Styles. The global pandemic forced them to film off-site, leading to the creative. That cinematic Boneyard match was an absolute masterpiece, cleverly masking his physical limitations while celebrating every version of him, from the Deadman to the American Badass, and even the man himself, Mark Calaway. After clinching that win and solidifying his WrestleMania record at 25-2, it felt like the perfect moment to walk away. You had heavy hitters like Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, John Cena, and Roman Reigns dominating as the face of the WWE. But eventually, they all had to enter the Reaper's domain. Hit that like button if you think Taker is the greatest of all time. Every generation's golden boy learned the same thing, the hard way. They might have run the show for a season, but they were always just trespassing in the Undertaker's yard. And that territory is sacred ground. Built on 4 decades of darkness and legendary respect, that yard will forever belong to him and nobody else.